Welcome to the Charity Ace podcast. We're continuing to talk tech a little bit today around really the transformations that are happening and what we see happening in the nonprofit world. And at Charity Ace, we're excited to have put out a new website. We're excited to be releasing some new digital products, really focusing on press release first. And today we're joined by David McInnis. And David, you have a wonderful career background, and most notably, I think, founder of PRWeb. Yeah. And really generated this industry around press releasing. And I'm excited to bring that to the nonprofit world and really help them understand how to tell their story. So thank you for taking time with us today and for everything that you do to support nonprofits and charities already. But we're about to really help them in a big way, I believe.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What is a press release?
Well, typically or traditionally, a press release has been a way that companies communicated with the media. And in 1997, I kind of took that model and turned it on its head and said the press release is a credible marketing document, right? Because of the format, it pulls a little bit of credibility along with it. And it was early kind of content marketing before search engines were really a thing. Search engines were just coming out, and I needed a way to get traffic to press releases. And so I optimized for SEO all the press releases that came through our site. So we turned the press release into a direct-to-consumer messaging platform rather than a direct-to-media platform. And it quickly became, when I say quickly, over a couple of years, became the de facto marketing go-to thing. When you were doing SEO or any kind of online marketing, the conversation was always there, did you put out a press release yet?
Yeah.
And I took that company PRWeb to an exit in 2006. I've stayed around in the content marketing space, and a couple of years ago I partnered with a friend of mine, and actually he was an integration partner at PRWeb, to create Newsworthy.ai.
Yeah, and Newsworthy.ai is where we're partnered on creating those press releases today.
Right.
But it's what an incredible tool it is.
Right. And it's just one platform. Like we were building a whole infrastructure around news and marketing. Newsramp.com is another site, but that's not something that anybody can use unless you're a newswire.
Right.
That's a service that we made available to newswires to allow them to take advantage of some of the really cool tools we developed at Newsworthy.
And with Newsworthy, I really appreciate that you've made it the distribution of a press release very simple and intuitive. And that's what I think is really going to help us take that to the nonprofit segment that really historically hasn't told their story online. And so I'm excited to see the small nonprofits, large nonprofits see this as an opportunity to just put out messaging.
And if you don't know how to create your story or tell your story, we have tools to help you do that.
Right. And that's where I've learned, because telling your story, what I will focus on in telling the story might not be the focus. Mm-hmm. And what you and your tools have really helped me see is, no, we have to get them all the way there. We have to start with who, what, where, when, why, and then the call to action.
Right. And we have tools that help do that and help you measure your success on one press release so that you maybe can improve on the next one. And we have a lot of AI to help do that. When I talked about PRWeb, the primary focus back then was SEO.
Right.
And now it's AI optimization, optimizing content for the large language models or the AI infrastructure, so that when somebody is in ChatGPT and they're asking questions about your company or your mission or just nonprofit fundraising in general, it pulls up your information.
Which is something our nonprofit partners need to be thinking about, because they're going to be left behind if they're not putting out that type of content, because AI just won't find them otherwise. Is that a true statement, a real concern?
Very much a concern because people are shifting their habits away from Google search to AI. You know, they open up their OpenAI chat window or their Perplexity chat window or whatever, and they ask a question. They don't search the same way that they used to search. And so I think we have shifted our model rather than focusing on the Google pond, right, and just fishing in that Google pond. Our model is now, hey, let's find 1,000 ponds to fish in, and we make sure your message gets in front of a lot of different places, so that you can find your customers where they live online, where they interact online, and so that's increasingly our focus. And in this vertical integration, I think one thing that Google gets a lot of flack for, being behind on things or doing things that are odd for the marketplace. But one thing I think they did that was very helpful about maybe a year, 18 months ago, was this whole eat push, this whole push about, trying to get content that's vertically aligned. And so that vertical alignment allows AI to actually have better context for your content. And so that's why we're pushing more in that direction rather than the gunshot approach of, hey, here's your press release, we're going to push out to 500 websites. You might only go to 24, but they're going to be the right 24, and they're going to be contextually appropriate to your message and your mission.
So in the story of a press release, we're selling them in packages of 6 because we really believe that there's value in doing that 6 times over 6 months, right? Because there is a cycle to how the news works and how the algorithms look at things. So the model that Charity Ace has taken to market is be recent and relevant. Be updating the news about your mission and your impact every month so that AI, donors, Google search, all of those components see you as relevant, recent, and your prominence grows up. You're recognizable, and you become a trusted source to the machine a little bit to say, yes, they're doing these actions, so I'm going to listen to them a little bit differently than the one-time hit.
Well, we talk about it as feeding the machine, right? You got to feed the beast. And the reality is if you're doing something, an organization or a business or whatever kind of organization you are, and you're not doing something newsworthy once a month, then what are you doing, right? And so you should be able to find something in your organization that you can be pushing to talk about once a month. Paul Allen is the one that turned me on to that idea. Paul Allen, not of Microsoft, but of the founder of Ancestry.com, and he's got a new AI startup right now, Soar. But back in PRWeb days, he said, I believe in the 28-day news cycle. I said, if I'm not putting out a press release a month, then I'm not in business.
So what kind of things, because I hear from our nonprofit leaders of, yeah, we're doing all this great work and we're moving the mission, but we're not making news because the local paper is not showing up, because the media, traditional media, is not calling them. They're not newsworthy. But I would argue that a new board nomination is newsworthy. A new gala chair could be newsworthy. Mission research being released is absolutely.
A new meal program, a new playground equipment.
Whatever your impact is.
Right. There you go.
And so I just want to encourage our nonprofit leaders to think about every month, what is it that we're doing that we can celebrate?
Well, in addition to everything we're talking about PR, your nonprofits need to become better storytellers. Right. What is the story that we're telling this month? And then drive to that story. Right. And I think most people have a hard time with that, right?
Well, we personally have a hard time with that.
Right. So focus on the story that you're telling, and then all your marketing and all your PR and everything should center around that story. And it should not be hard to find something newsworthy in your organization, whether the local media wants to report on it or not. Look, don't get me started on journalism, right?
Yeah.
They're a bunch of lemmings and they're chasing the same 6 stories. They don't really care about most of the news that happens. They approach it from an angle of power and authority. And so they're going to cover the stories that give them the most power, leverage, and authority. And that might not be your nonprofit.
Well, yeah. Right? If I think about the news that I watch on occasion, I don't see nonprofit. Right. I see tragedy and fear mostly. But
that's where that responsibility shifts to you in a direct-to-consumer approach. So I was never in love with the the mainstream media model of pitching to the journalist, because there is a lot of gatekeeping that happens. But with the direct to consumer approach and taking your press release message right to your customer, right to your donor, right to your users and your shareholders, you're empowered to tell your story without that media filter, and you can do it as often as you like. And we suggest a 28-day news cycle, so once every 28 days.
Well, and I just appreciate, and through Charity Ace, we've made it accessible to nonprofit leaders, economically and the doing of it. Because most nonprofits, I mean, there's a lot of work that's happening in there, and it's hard to say, oh, I need to do one more thing.
Yeah.
So we've really created this done-for-you model that allows you to give us something as simple as your event page.
Right.
And then we can go out and help you write that first press release.
And what I like that we've been able to do with Charity Ace is in our partnership, we've said we'll give a charity their first press release for free.
Right.
Right. All they have to do is contact you, and your team will even write it for them.
Right.
And so it's a really easy way to get started. The value on the back end, if you decide to go for a 6-month package, is enormous. It's a huge savings that we're doing for nonprofits. So this is a great partnership for us, and I think it's going to be a fantastic partnership for your charities.
How do you calculate that? Because I think charities are also looking at the world and saying social media is where we need to be focused, but social media can get real expensive real quick. So,
especially if you're doing paid.
Right. So how do you think about the cost of a press release relative to how many views it's going to get, how it's going to be shared, versus a Facebook post that's going to get likes and engagement?
Well, let's just take an example, and I'll just use easy numbers right now. Let's just say you're paying $100 for a press release. It's a little bit more, but let's just say it's $100. If the first click on that press release costs you $100,
right?
The second click, those 2 clicks cost $50, right? The value, the magic of a press release is it's a marketing activity you do once, and it has a very long tail, right? And so you'll look at your analytics report, in 30 days, and you say, hey, my cost per click is 5 cents.
Right.
Right. Like, you don't have to pay the 5 cents. It's just baked into the initial $100 you spent. But because you keep getting more and more traffic to that press release over time, and you're building authority, your effective cost per click on that is 5 cents. And, a year later, it could be a penny, right? You can't buy traffic for your messaging for the amount for a better price.
Right.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. You put your message out once, and it's got such a long tail, and you put out a second one, and it's got a long tail, and you just keep building authority that way, and pretty much you can own your space.
Well, and unlike ads, it doesn't end. If you're paying for ads, it's a one-time hit on a news feed, or it's out there for 30 days. But once that license is gone, it's gone.
It's there for the duration of your campaign, right? This is like a campaign that you start that doesn't have an end to it. And because you're creating content that lives forever.
And the machine can always find. And
because it's news, it's authoritative, right? Because of the press format, it's authoritative. We actually take the press release and route it through NewsRamp.
Mm-hmm.
And with NewsRamp, we actually create bylined articles. So it's like a journalist writing your article, but you don't have to sit there and beg the journalist to do it. It's just our service actually creates the bylined article. So you're not putting out, think of it this way, you're not just putting out your press release, but you're putting out, 15, 20, 30 bylined articles. And those live in forever as well.
And on many different sources.
Mm-hmm.
So you're attracting new donors, new attention to your mission.
Right.
And that sits out there. And when you do it regularly, once a month, once 28 days, it just ranks you higher. And everybody wants to say, how do I get to the top of Google? But as AI comes in, it's, am I showing up on ChatGPT? And I can confidently say you won't show up on AI unless you've made some really significant changes. And if you do show up by accident, are you going to show up the way you want to show up?
Right. I think we can maybe touch on the example of comfort.
Right.
When we had that tragedy in Kerrville with the flooding, you spun up with Charity Ace, you spun up a foundation and to help. And
we had a foundation that was 25 years old
okay.
and had never raised money because it didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't online because it didn't need to. But in the day of tragedy, it needed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you worked with Booster Hub to come up with some sort of donation platform, and we put out a press release.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Booster Hub.
Yeah.
and we put out a press release and announced that this Booster Hub facility was open to raise money for a Comfort Area Foundation.
Right.
And very soon after that, like probably within the same day or next day,
within an hour,
you were showing up in like Comfort Area flood relief, and you were at the top of the results, right?
Right.
That happens because of the power of news, right? And it's just different from a blog post or a web page. It's news. News is treated differently because it's supposed to be timely.
Yep.
And we were able to bring Comfort Area Foundation out of obscurity to the top of the list. And then when you went into AI mode in Google and you said, hey, we looked at the AI mode, it was the press releases that we had put out that were cited as for that result. So very powerful. If you need to launch a new initiative, put out a press release.
Right. And recognize that your audience may not just be who you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you put that press release out, you're really going to see it go across distribution channels nationally. And for Comfort's example, you can go to comfort-floodrelief.com and see it. But we've had donors from 48 different states
mm-hmm.
that saw the press release because that's the only marketing that's been done. But they found it through search or they found it through the release, and they've been able to make an impact in the local community. And so I just want to challenge any nonprofit leader to say, when was the last time we put something out in the news, and how did it perform? How do we
where we controlled the message?
Right. Where we wrote the message.
Right.
And you're still on the hook for what you write.
Right.
So I think it's a good distinction. AI plays a big role in today's world, and there's a respectful and rightful distrust of it. But I think Newsworthy has approached it really clearly with, you submit your press release, you agree that this is all true and you're taking ownership of it, and then we blockchain back to that source article.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but
it's trust.
It is trust. It's the content provenance. It's here's the press release, and we can trace back this article is written on this press release, and here's the original one because it's registered in the blockchain.
Yeah,
I think as we talk about this, we had an experience the other day where we were talking with our client, and what's the impact of the press release? Well, it's been read 5,300 times.
Right.
And the aha moment for the client was, wow, that's 5,300 people that have not had a previous interaction with our brand, right? That's powerful. I mean,
but in that same example,
try to get 5,300 people to walk through your door tomorrow.
Right. Or get 165 people to share it.
Right.
Because we get views and shares are incredible. That's the referral marketing. That's the referral.
That's the word of mouth
context stuff that is just so valuable in a nonprofit mission-led organization of how do you spread the impact? How do you share the news?
And we have on as part of the Newsworthy platform that Charity News uses, we have this thing called advocacy groups, and we allow people to upload all their stakeholders, whether they be donors or
board members,
or people they serve, or community leaders, whoever their stakeholders are, their employees. They upload that list into our system, and then as soon as our press release goes out, every one of those stakeholders get a copy of that press release with a link. And so as soon as that press release goes out, we can tell which stakeholders are actually really engaged with your brand or your charity by tracking who's actually sharing that message. And that advocacy platform, we call it advocacy, is probably one of the most powerful features of our website, because that's what lights a fire under your message. That's what actually drives the initial impact is, hey, I put out a press release and 700 people that I know and care about got my message, and 20% of them shared it. Right?
Yeah,
and that really lights the fire. And the unsubscribe rate on that is nothing. Right? We don't get anybody unsubscribing from that because it's news and it's expected, and I don't know. It's a magical thing.
in our instance, it's news about a mission that you care about, you're donating to, you're giving time, talent, treasure into these missions. And we hear so often, well, I wish I'd known about that story. I wish I knew that story. I wish I'd known that my donation made that kind of impact. And so today, Charity Ace is really proud to be a part of shifting our thinking and shifting our donors' thinking and our charities' thinking to say, how do we spread the word of impact? How do we make everything you're doing a celebrated part of your mission that's going to return to your donor? And then the donor centricity is really important. You talk about advocacy on your side. We have donor advocates on our team, and we're a team of donors that want to serve donors. So we're very much in the shoes of our customers in our giving of time, talent, and treasure, but we want to celebrate it further. How do we tell that story? How do we get your mission out to the forefront? Because your audience might not just be who's in the room. It very rarely is just who's in that room. You might have an audience in Maine that you've never thought, but because of your mission, there's a connection and a tie, and that's going to drive more donors, more attention, more impact. So
what if I'm a nonprofit, and I mean, we've made it so inexpensive.
Right, we've made it approachable.
But this is something that they could potentially have underwritten by a donor.
Yeah, we would really love to see donors think about impact more broadly and say, how do you support the marketing and storytelling of your charity of choice?
Right.
Come to Charity Ace, underwrite a package, and let's give it as a gift to that charity. Let's make it easy because it's investments in part of their organizational operational budget that I don't know that they're necessarily saying, hey, this is a line item I could ask for from a donor, but we want to package it that way.
Yeah, and it makes the impact of your other donors a lot more meaningful.
Right.
Like I remember back in 9/11, I was running PRWeb after 9/11, and I just said, hey, anything that comes in over the next 30 days, I'm going to give to the Red Cross.
Right.
Right? I did that, and I wrote a really sizable check to the Red Cross at the end of the month. I felt good about it, but then over the next year and a half, 2 years, I felt less good about it because I could see how much money they were spending to retarget me and remarket to me as a donor. And if I would have known that, no, that donation was, that marketing was underwritten by somebody else, and that actually my donation made a significant impact.
To the impact.
Right. To the bottom line, then I would have been better off with it. I would have felt better about it.
That's a great example. Yeah. There's lots of ways we as donors can serve our charities and just want to keep encouraging the charities to get their message of impact out and to make the ask for underwriting some of these tools and new expense items that charities 40 years ago weren't thinking about. They were doing it in different ways with postcards and direct mail. But today there's an expense line that is new and uncomfortable. So how do we get it there? And we've done some stuff with pricing on making it affordable, making it accessible. But I think it goes that much further when we can get the donor mindset on this is true impact.
Right.
Here's how I'm going to make a donation that's going to really help us reach the masses and attract more donors. Well, David, it's been a pleasure to partner with you. It's been a pleasure to work with you and understand your history and what you've done for the industry, but then forward-looking what we're about to do for charities and getting them to tell their stories. I'm really excited about the impact that we'll do together over the next year. So thank you for the privilege. Thank you for the time today. And I look forward to seeing you in the rooms with some donors.
Thank you.